Hey, y'all, welcome to Curiosity by Design. Today we're reading a schedule. Not because sometimes a thing can be polished, thoughtful, and full of information and still fail the person trying to use it. It names what exists, it does not name how to begin. And that gap teaches before the learning even starts. It teaches if you belong here, you'd already know how this works. So today's question is, where is the architecture offloading orientation to the person trying to participate? Have you ever looked at something and thought, okay, but what am I supposed to do now? That's the ache underneath today's episode. The moment where you assume the confusion is yours. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm being slow. Maybe everyone else gets it and I'm the only one who doesn't. And sure, sometimes we all miss things. We skim, we're tired, we arrive distracted. That's normal. The problem's not that the person's slow or distracted or even tired. Sometimes the architecture never clearly named the path. Sometimes the information exists, but the arrival logic does not. This is a fictional composite. We're not here to call orgs out or people or products or offerings. We've all gone to events, whether in person or virtual. It looks competent. It looks organized. It looks like someone cared. We've all probably even seen these or created them ourselves. Tracks, breakouts, room labels, reminders, navigation notes. Feels great. Updates, a QR code. Information's technically there. But that's not the question. The question is, does this help a first-time participant understand how to arrive? Do they know where to start, what matters first, how to choose, what to ignore, what to do before they even get there? Or are they quietly expected just to piece it all together alone? I'll show you what I mean. This is the part where if you ever find yourself going to an event and you see this and you're like, this is a little overwhelming. And then you reach out to have you been to this? Can you tell me about it? Is it too big? How do I orient? Am I going to need to hide in my room after every so many sessions just to decompress and stare at a wall? So that's where this comes in. Let's take a look at this artifact marked up. Hey, I love it when it works. So what is this artifact teaching? Got some notes in here for us to focus in on. First, the event is organized. Check. Your path through it is yours to assemble. Okay, that sounds great. Who doesn't like choice, right? Big fan. That is the architecture of the missing map, though, because you assembling something takes energy, it takes guessing, it takes resources sometimes, and that all depletes you and impacts how you then show up and engage with said material. So one, the newcomer path is missing, right? Hopefully you're always having newcomers come to your event, because I don't know of a single business who's no new people to know who we are or engage with our product or service. So the newcomer path is missing. There's no clean start here, no gracious arrival sequence that we know of, no clear answer to the first question, where do I begin? And that matters because arrival is not neutral. The first few minutes always teach people whether the room has accounted for them specifically. Second is there's a ton of choice to be made, right? We love choice, but the problem here is that it's all before context. It asks you to choose before you know the context of the bigger, grander thing. Choose your track, choose your breakout, choose your path. But based on what? How I'm feeling, where my friends are going? What sounds like I could sit in the back and still do email? Like something that I know is going to actually solve an identified business problem that I'm working on? The architecture gives options before it gives orientation, and that's problematic. That's not agency. That is guessing dressed up as a choice. And third, orientation is super scattered. Some of it's in the schedule, some of it's in Teams, others of it is in a prior email, some of it's in an onboarding thread, some of it's in the live agenda, some of it's behind a QR code. Great. How many access points, right? We love that in a differentiation standpoint. So yes, the information exists. Check. But the attendee still has so much to do to assemble the path. That's where we can make improvements. And once you see that, the hidden lesson gets really, really loud. If you belong here, you already know how this works. A website can do this, a workshop, an event, an offer, a membership, a client process, a studio, a whole body of work can do this. It can look polished. It probably does. It can have real value. It probably does. It can be thoughtful, substantive, even beautiful. And still, the person arriving for the first time especially has to do so much interpretive labor at the point of entry. They have to decide before they understand. They have to infer what should have been named. They have to figure out which channel matters most. They have to decode the room before they can participate in it. And when people have to decode too much, they do not always ask for help. Sometimes they leave, sometimes they lurk, sometimes they delay, sometimes they decide, must just not be for me. Sometimes they stay, but spend their energy reading the system instead of engaging the work. So we keep calling it a confidence problem because the architecture would indict the system. That's a thread you'll find through all these different episodes. We say people need to ask more questions. Yeah. Be more proactive. Sounds great. Read more carefully, please. Take more initiative, maybe sometimes. But maybe they're not hesitant because they lack initiative. Maybe they're hesitant because the system keeps externalizing orientation. Maybe the path exists, but only as a puzzle. Maybe they're exhausted. Maybe they're thinking, I'm not supposed to be successful here. Maybe the hidden lesson is competent people figure this out quietly, or even sharper, if you belong here, you'd already know how this works. As where this communication issue becomes an agency issue. So the agency turn for me here is stop making people become the map. That does not mean flattening the world. It does not mean killing mystery, depth, texture, or discovery. Mystery is not the problem. Forced private decoding is. It's inequitable and it's exhausting. Complexity is not the problem. Complexity is not the problem. Offloaded orientation is. Agency requires enough orientation for someone to make a meaningful move. What do I do next? What do I do with my hands? How do I do it? Can I enter? Where do I begin? What matters first? How do I decide? What should I do before I arrive? What happens next? If those things are not named, people are not freely choosing. They're choosing before they have context. They're guessing, and guessing is expensive. It costs attention, it costs confidence, it costs trust, participation, and money. So the work is not to explain everything to death. The work is to give people enough orientation that belonging does not require performance first. So here's the question I want us to sit with this week and practice with. Where in your work are people being forced to infer what should be named? Look at one thing this week. Your offer, an onboarding email, a workshop opening, your event flow, an intake form, your client handoff, a meeting agenda. Ask these questions. Where is the path technically present but not actually clear? Where am I asking people to choose before I've given them enough context? Where have I scattered orientation across too many places? And what one sentence, sequence, sign, or cue would help someone arrive without having to become the map first? So if you take one thing with you today, make it information is not a map. A thing can contain all the right pieces and still fail the person trying to enter it. The missing map does not always look messy. Sometimes it looks polished. It often does. It looks smart. It looks efficient. Sometimes it looks like we didn't want to bore you or over-explain. But if people spend their first moments assembling the path for themselves, the architecture is already teaching them something. It's teaching them if you belonged here, you'd already know how this works. And that's not agency. That's abandonment with better branding. So I'll leave you with this. Where is the architecture offloading orientation to the person trying to participate? So bring that to the table. Let me know in the comments over on LinkedIn. Give me an email or a DM and let's chat it up. Let's get to work.